Honourable members, prayers. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to look with favor upon this Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Grant that it may perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic. Thou members of Parliament, and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served. Their good purposes for the common human life realized in our midst. O God, grant us the vision of our country, fair as it might be. Country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor. Country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with. Country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded in service, and honor shall be given to the deserving. Country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people, that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honourable members, we'll start with the correctional votes and proceedings for Friday, the 26th of March, 2021. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. Page 14. Page 15. Page 16. Page 17. Page 18. Page 19. Page 20. '21. Page 22. Page 23. Page 24. Page 25. 26. 27. 28. 29. Page 30. Page 31. 32. Page 33. Honourable members, the votes and proceedings of Friday, the 26th of March, adopted as a true record of proceedings. Item 4. Business statement for the 11th week. Honorable Majority Leader. Yes, business statement.
Speaker, the Business Committee met yesterday, Thursday, the 25th of March, 2021, and arranged business of the House for the 11th week ending Tuesday, 30th of March, 2021. The committee accordingly submits its report as follows. Right Honorable Speaker, you may read any available communication to the House. The Business Committee has rescheduled the Minister for Health to listen and asked of him. The Minister was unavailable to answer the question as earlier scheduled due to budget-related engagements. Sub 2, the Ministers of State may be permitted to make statements on government policy. As truly admitted by you, Right Honorable Speaker, may be made in the House by honorable members in accordance with Order 72. The Speaker, bills may be presented to the House for first reading in accordance with Order 120. However, those of urgent nature may be taken through the various stages in accordance with Order 119. Pursuant to Order 75, Mr. Speaker, papers for presentation to the House may be placed on the order paper for laying. Committee reports may also be presented to the House for consideration. Speaker, motions may be debated and their consequential resolutions, if any, taken during the week. Outstanding reports on estimates issued to department and agencies and other institutions and related motions. Speaker, the Business Committee entreats all committees which are yet to present their reports for their respective sector MDAs to expedite work on their consideration reports on same attention of the House to enable the presentation of the Appropriations Bill 2021 by Monday, the 29th of March 2021. As you are aware, we had intended that today, Friday, we'll be able to complete this business of the consideration of the sector estimates. Unfortunately, there are few that are outstanding. We'll see how we can travel today. And at the insistence of colleagues yesterday, some of the ministers who couldn't make it are being entreated to be here, including those of them on their sick beds. We are urging the, the doctors to see if they could discharge them in order for them to come to Parliament and thereafter go back to the hospital. The Speaker, the Appropriations Bill for 2021, other financial bills are expected to be presented on or before Saturday, the 27th of March, by attention of the House. Speaker, we also intend that the budget-related taxes presented to the House on Monday for consideration by the Finance Committee, and when they are reported on, we anticipate the House to adopt same, and then that will clear Tuesday for the presentation of the Appropriations Bill for its consideration and adoption. Speaker, so Monday, the House would sit, and sittings of the House may be extended to ensure that business scheduled for the 2 days, Tuesday, will be able to complete them in order for us to take an adjournment sine die on Tuesday, the 30th of March 2021. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, the Business Committee entreats all honorable members to continue to devote themselves to the scheduled business for the week under consideration to enable the House adjourn on the proposed Tuesday, 30th March 2021. The Speaker, the Business Committee takes the opportunity to sincerely commend you and the second Deputy Speaker, as well as the Right Honourable Speaker, and all honourable members for the self-sacrifice and devotion to business of the House during this first meeting. Worthy of note is the willingness to sit long hours, even on Mondays, and the Business Committee urges all honorable members to continue with this commitment until adjournment sine die. The committee wishes all honorable members ahead of time a restful Easter recess, hoping that we will all return in the best of health for the business of the second meeting. Honorable Speaker, a proposed parliamentary calendar for 2021 has been prepared. The said calendar is attached to the business statement for perusal by honorable members. Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 162 and subject to Standing Order 53, the committee submits to this honorable House the order in which the business of the House shall be taken during the week. Mr. Speaker, I don't intend to go through the business for the 2 remaining days, Monday, Tuesday, as set out, because I believe members would apply themselves to it. Whatever is left outstanding today, the Speaker will go to Monday. But having said so, we have attached 3 proposals for the 2021 calendar. Mr. Speaker, we haven't considered this. We'll leave it to the House for their consideration and adoption. But the committee is of the firm belief that scenario 3, adjourning Tuesday and going for a 6-week recess and coming back on the 18th of May will be much more appropriate. The reason being that the Eid will be ending on the 13th, most probably, and if it should so happen, the Speaker, the 14th of May, then will become a public holiday. And even though we have programmed earlier to be here on the 11th, it will mean that coming 11th, we'll set 11th to have 13th and 14th declared as holidays. So we'll be here for just 2 days in that week. And indeed, we are of the considered opinion that it will serve the House better if we allow for additional week rest periods and come back on the 18th of May to then possibly adjourn on the 6th of August. Speaker, I so submit.
Honourable members, any comments on the business statement for next week? Yes, Honourable Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the statement as read is well understood, and I really don't have comments on it, but I just want to find out how we are responding to Order 14.2, which happens with the absence of Mr. Speaker. It looks like the whole of last week it has not, whether it's been interpreted differently or, because we have not been communicated when the Speaker comes, and when yesterday the second deputy also came. So 14.2. Huh? Pardon? You are saying something? Absence of Mr. Speaker. 14.2. 13. Yeah.
There appears to be no further comments. Honourable Leader, would you want to say something?
Speaker, as the member rightly observed, that indeed is a duty of the clerks at table, and it really doesn't form part of the business statement at all. So in that regard, Mr. Speaker, I'll plead with you to rule the honorable member out of order. It has nothing to do with the business of this House, as submitted by the Business Committee.
Very well, honourable members. The business statement for the ensuing week is hereby adopted. Oh, yes, Honourable.
Mr. Speaker, looking at the business statement over here, we have 3 scenarios on the calendar. Which one are we using? The 3 scenarios for the calendar for the year. I'm sorry? 3. Scenario 3. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Honourable Leader, do you wish to share any information on which of the 3 scenarios we are using?
Mr. Speaker, I really spoke to it, but the Honorable, is that Samuel Tamils?
That's Honourable Mills. Mills, yes.
Yes. The Honorable Samuel Tamils, Mr. Speaker, I don't normally say African wear. And I'm saying that I don't normally see him in African wear. So I thought I was not recognizing the person who was there. He's very aristocratic and he's most often in suit. So I wasn't seeing him. Mr. Speaker, but I spoke to it that I was recommending scenario C in view of the calendar for our colleagues, the Muslims.
Very well. Honourable members, the business statement for the ensuing week is hereby adopted as a work program of the House for the week commencing Monday. The Speaker admitted 2 statements, but the members have requested that we defer their statements. So we'll go straight to item 6, presentation of papers. Yes, Honourable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I guess we can do the presentation of papers. 6 Roman number 1. Roman number 2 is not ready. So we'll do Roman number 1. And so, Mr. Speaker, I guess we could do 6A Roman number 1.
Very well. Item number 6AI. By the Chairman of the Committee.
Report of the Special Budget Committee on the Annual Budget Estimate Commission for the year ending 31st December 2020.
The report is duly laid for distribution to members. Are we ready to do B? AII, I'm advised, is not ready. Constitution and Legal, are you ready to do B? Well, I was advised that I was not ready, but if it is ready, you can lay it now. Yes, item A, Aye.
Report of the Special Budget Committee on the annual budget estimates of Parliament and the Parliamentary Service for the year ending 31st December 2021.
The report is duly presented for distribution to members. Item B, 6B, Committee on Constitution and Legal. Yes.
Report of the Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs on the annual of the Right of Information Commission for the year ending 31st December 2021.
Yes.
Speaker, just to correct, we're rather calling for 6C. C for camel, 6C.
Very well. So,
Report of the committee.
reported, yes.
Report of the Committee on Judiciary on the annual budget estimates of the Judiciary and the Judicial Service for the year ending 31st December 2021.
The report is duly laid for distribution to members.
Speaker, item 6B, B for bail.
B is the one you said was not.
Yes.
Yes, Chamber of Constitution and Legal.
Report of the Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs on the annual of the Right of Information Commission for the year ending 31st December 2021.
The report is duly laid for presentation, for distribution to members. Item D, are you ready? Yes, Leader.
Speaker, Mary 14 on page 5.
First, let me confirm whether the reports in respect of government machinery and government obligations will be laid now. Item D, Honorable Majority Leader. Yes.
DI. Yes, we got D. Roman number 1 and Roman number 2 are not ready yet. So
Very well.
that's why we're going to item 14.
Item number 14. But I was expecting that the other people will have a place for the report of the Appointment Committee, the third report of the Appointment Committee. The table office will take note so that yes. So item number 14, motion by the Attorney General and Minister for Justice.
Mr. Speaker, Speaker, I beg to move motion number 14 that this Honorable House approves a sum of 133,640,427 Ghana cedis for the services of the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice for the year ending 31st December 2021. The Speaker, the Office of the Attorney General has a constitutional mandate of providing legal advice to the government, initiation and conduct of criminal prosecution, representing the Republic of Ghana locally and abroad in civil suits and ensuring the rule of law. The ministry took a significant measure of success in 2020. The Office of the Attorney General indeed represented the state in 305 civil suits brought against the state and saving the country from paying huge sums of money as judgment debt. The Speaker, the Office of the Attorney General prepared 474 pieces of legislation made up of 24 substantive legislation and 450 subsidiary legislation, which have been enacted into law. The Speaker, the General Legal Council, which operates the Ghana School of Law, enrolled a total of 549 lawyers to the bar in the year 2020. The Ghana School of Law conducted entrance examination for 2,701 applicants in August 2020 and admitted a total of 1,045 students out of them. The Speaker, the General Legal Council envisages to conduct entrance examination for 2,200 applicants and admit 800 to the Ghana School of Law in the year 2021. We project that the General Legal Council will handle 180 disciplinary cases against lawyers. The major challenges of the ministry, its departments and agencies over the years have been inadequate funding, inadequate office space and residential accommodation across the country, inadequate equipment and logistics, and delay by MMDAs in providing adequate information to attorney general in cases involving them, occasionally resulting in default judgments against the state. The Speaker, the ministry's strategic role in the administration of justice and the promotion of the rule of law cannot be overemphasized. The continuous entry has had adverse effects on the administration of justice and the rule of law, which are pivotal in the administration of justice and entrenchment of democratic culture in the country. The Speaker, I therefore appeal to this Honourable House to consider the key role of the Office of Attorney General and Minister of Justice in deepening democracy and good governance in the country and intervene on its behalf for additional budgetary allocation. The Speaker, I so move.
Yes, Chairman of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion, and in so doing, I present your committee's report. I pray that the Hansa Department captures the entire report whilst I go through excerpts of the report. Mr. Speaker, I would want to just mention something on observations. We have the Ghana School of Law, the Council for Law Reporting, the Copyright Office, the Economic and Organized Crime Unit, the Law Reform Commission. All these institutions and the Council for Law Reporting, what they made the committee understand was that their allocations were not enough. Finance Ministry explained that the budget is given to the ministry en bloc, and therefore the priorities are set by the Attorney General. I therefore would urge the Attorney General to make sure that these very important agencies under his outfit are well catered for. Mr. Speaker, I will take the House to the recommendations and conclusions. The committee recognizes the role played by the Office of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Justice in promoting rule of law, access to justice, peace, and deepening of the country's democratic governance. The committee also recognizes the inadequate funding of the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice and appeals to the Ministry of Finance for additional funding to the ministry to improve the poor working conditions of its attorneys and other staff. Accordingly, the committee recommends to the House to adopt this report and approve the sum of 133,640,428 cedis for the activities of the Office of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Justice for the financial year 21. I so submit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Ranking Member.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me the opportunity to support the motion that this Honourable House approves the sum of 133,640,437 Ghana cedis for the services of the Office of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Justice for the year ending 31st December 2021. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, it is agreeable that the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice plays a very important role in this country when it comes to the rule of law. Mr. Speaker, the Attorney General's Department is a government advisor and render a lot of services to Ghanaians. Mr. Speaker, their goal and functions are set out in paragraph 4.0 and 5.0 of the committee's report, and I intend not to go over that. Mr. Speaker, it is observable that in the year under review, the committee's expenditure was 146,952,272 Ghana cedis, 91 pesos. That was the total expenditure for the ministry in the year 2020. Mr. Speaker, in the year 2021, the allocation to the ministry is 133,640,427. There was a clear difference. Mr. Speaker, the ministry that it is the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice that is to make priority allocation for all the agencies under it. Mr. Speaker, if in the year under review they are giving about 147 million, or their expenditure was 147 million, and this year they are being given 133 million, and given the opportunity to go and prioritize the allocation to all the agencies under them, what are they going to do? Clearly, this allocation to the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice is woefully inadequate, and this, for me, will not enable them to function well. They will be under financial constraint to be able to function. Mr. Speaker, some of the agencies under the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice are performing very important role. One of those agencies is the Law Reform Commission. Mr. Speaker, law is a communicative action. It's an instrument for social engineering, and it is supposed to be an aid to development. And we have a lot of overarching and obsolete laws in our record which needs to be reformed. But the Law Reform Commission for the year 2021 is being given less than 2 million, inclusive of compensation for employees, goods and services, and CAPEX. They cannot even employ a lawyer to assist them in performing their services. Mr. Speaker, how can we blame the Law Reform Commission for non-performance if for a whole year their budgetary allocation is less than 2 million? They cannot perform their function. And as indicated, the law should be an aid to development as a of social engineering. I do not know what we are going to do in the year 2021 to enable the Law Reform Commission to perform creditably. Incontestably, the allocation to the Law Reform Commission that we are urging upon the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice to go and prioritize right from the onset is woefully inadequate. So we are just tightening the hands of the Attorney General and Minister of the Justice at the back that yes, this is allocation, 1.8 million. Go and prioritize it for them. He cannot do anything. So, Speaker, another important agency under the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice is legal education. That's the General Legal Council. The Speaker, as indicated by the Attorney General, in the year under review, over 200 people, 271,000 people wrote the entrance examination, out of which they admitted 1,045. But in the budget, the allocation, they are expecting 2,200 to write the entrance examination, and out of 2,200, 550 will be admitted, and out of the 550, 450 will be called to the bar. But Mr. Speaker, when we met with the Ghana School of Law, the indication was that generate revenue about 7 million. The government will take the 7 million and give them 3 to 4 million. As a result, they cannot expand. They want to even build a law school village, but it's crawling. They generate, the government takes it and give them a small amount of money. And that in the year 2021, if given adequate allocation, they can admit more than the projection of the 550. They will be able to admit 800 students. And that is the only way they can begin to clear the backlogs of the students yearning to enter Ghana School of Law. My prayer is that the General Legal Council should be given enough allocation so that they will be able to Ghana School of Law, and the 800 that they are promising, if given the resources they can admit, they will be able to admit it instead of the 550 being projected in the budget. Mr. Speaker, my hope and prayer is that the caretaker Minister for Finance is here, and if he is listening to me, I am pleading with him that if the Attorney General in the year 2021 cannot be given resources at all, it should not be less than their expenditure for the year under review. We will surely be expecting expenditure in excess of appropriation was spent last year. They will not be given this year, because surely they will have to spend the money. They cannot reduce the number of employees that they have, and I believe they even need more. And instead of being given more allocation, it is now being reduced. Mr. Speaker, if care is not taken, the minister is here. It will get to a point that you will not even have money to pay salary for the people that you have working under you. Even if you have not been able to employ more people, your existing staff will not be able to meet their compensation for the year 2021. Mr. Speaker, as we approve the amount of 133,640,427 Ghana cedis for the services of the Office of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Justice, we are pleading that they should find a way of upping this particular amount for them to be able to function and function well. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Leadership. Leadership. Oh.
Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the motion that this House approves the sum of 133,640,428 Ghana cedis for the activities of the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry for Justice. And Mr. Speaker, in doing so, to refer you to your committee's report, in particular page 8, paragraph 87, line 1. I'm sure they want to say in 2021. I read in 2012. In 2012. So it should be corrected. In 2021, IOCO intends to continue the fight against crime and cover proceeds from economic crimes. And Mr. Speaker, is it just cybercrime and economic? When the committee is reporting, report well on the mandate of the economic and organized crime. Mr. Speaker, they are playing a very important role, both preventive and helping combat corruption. Mr. Speaker, if you come to page 11, paragraph 10.6, IOCO is asking for 2 million. Mr. Speaker, quote, office is appealing to the Ministry of Finance to increase its budgetary allocation for goods and services from 1,377,979 cedis to 2 million Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Finance having a difficulty in approving this. This is your anti-corruption body, a very important criminal investigative body. And Mr. Speaker, just oppose it with page 10 in paragraph, the first paragraph. The same IOCO help you to recover some money. I want to quote the exact paragraph. The same IOCO help government recover some money. And they recovered more, and they are asking for just 2 million, and we are not able to provide for it. So, Mr. Speaker, we should make a strong observation to the Minister for Finance to increase the goods and services allocation for the economic and organized crime. Mr. Speaker, as I listen to the ranking member and the chairman, and Mr. Speaker, that leads me to paragraph 84, Ghana School of Law. And Mr. Speaker, it raises a fundamental question, what doing to support the General Legal Counsel and the Office of the Attorney General to expand access to legal education. We have received petitions upon petitions, and it is about starting an infrastructure project that expands access to legal education. Parliament will be failing the General Legal Counsel and the Attorney General if we don't recommend that additional resources be made available for it. Then it means we are paying lip service to those young people who came here demonstrating that they cannot have access to legal education. So, Mr. Speaker, if we just say that an appeal was made for Ghana School of Law, the problem has been running in the last 2-3 years. Young people cannot access legal education. What do we do? This is when Parliament should be acting. And I think that I'm disappointed that the Ministry of Finance has not made enough provision for this. And I'm disappointed that the committee is not making a strong recommendation for resources to be made available for expansion of access to legal education, in particular the Ghana School of Law. Mr. Speaker, I've listened to both Chief Justices. Justice Ashidan was Lady Chief Justice Sofa Akufo. I've listened to Justice Eni Yebua. All of them, the argument is that let us not compromise quality. We all agree with it. But in this budget, what is Parliament doing to satisfy the protests
and the petitions that we received from young people who wanted to have access to legal education. So the law school project, Minister for Finance, when you come back here, should you, and you don't have enough resources for law school village project, we will not be supportive of you, even if you want to read the budget. That they will protest on behalf of young people who want to have access to legal education, because you must take it much more seriously. Mr. Speaker, Registrar General Department, they are doing very well for the one of the institutions. And Mr. Speaker, let's not take it for granted. When you say you are fighting corruption, it's not only the police and the Attorney General that helps you fight corruption. The Registrar General Department provides some of the systems that can allow for adequate checks for people who abuse their offices and people likely to be corrupt, especially with what? With these tax TIN numbers with GRA and the registration of companies and then lifting the veil. One can understand why in 2020, because of the extraordinary circumstance of COVID, the Registrar General did not live up to expectation. But Mr. Speaker, my view is that the Registrar General will have to decentralize its operation. Do you need to travel from Hamlet to Accra to register a company? Or you should be able to do it wherever you are, even if you are coming from Kumau. Must you come to Accra to register a company? How are we getting that done? So, Mr. Speaker, then finally, the offices where 400,000 is being, paragraph 10 to Mr. Speaker, the Law House project. Mr. Speaker, you yourself drive by it every day. When you pass the new infrastructure provided for the justices, you see the building. Why? We must bring closure. Why only 400,000? What can 400,000 do to that edifice of an infrastructure? So it makes the project more costly and more expensive. So, Mr. Speaker, reported. Then finally, judgment debt. This same Attorney General that you are not giving resources, you want him to go and represent the state and fight to recover and avoid judgment debt. They must be adequately resourced. And Mr. Speaker, my advice to the new young minister for the Attorney General is that you have to work closely with the Minister for Finance. Many ministers work to Parliament without your concurrent approval of what they want to do. And that normally occasions this judgment debt. By the time he came to Parliament, the Attorney General opinion is not sought. The concurrent approval of the Minister of Finance and Attorney General is not properly exhausted. They come here, agree to terms that puts the state in a difficulty. We cannot continue that culture where judgment debt becomes a normal feature of our governance process in this country. It's not acceptable. That $50 million recovered in the name of judgment debt could have constructed a clinic or a school somewhere. That is how we should look at it. So, Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly support the motion, but trust that the Minister of Finance can do better for the office of the Attorney General. It is at the heart of our governance, it is at the heart of combat corruption, and they need to be adequately resourced. The former Minister Gloria Kufu passed that landmark bill on the Council of State. Since now, we didn't have that legislation in place. Commendable. I hope that the new Minister Odami will also. I've seen you reference spousal rights. The Speaker has his own position on that matter, but I've seen it captured in some paragraph of your report. And then the affirmative action bill. Mr. Speaker, with this, I support the motion. Thank you.
Yes, majority leadership. Yeah. Yes, Honorable Member for Joseph.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the majority leader for the opportunity given to the motion for the annual budget estimates of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice. Mr. Speaker, the core functions of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice is specified under Article 88(1) of the Constitution, and they provide legal advice and legal services to the government. They also have oversight responsibility on several departments and agencies, including the Registrar General's Department, the General Legal Council, the Ghana School of Law, the Council for Law Reporting, the Copyright Office, and the Economic and Organized Crime Office. Mr. Speaker, in 2020, the Attorney General's Office did a lot in terms of its activities in protecting the public purse. Mr. Speaker, if you look at paragraph 7.1, on the second paragraph, one of the notable civil cases that the Attorney General had to save this country was an amount of 592,705,048 Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, this is very significant because the entire 2021 projected revenues for the country, as captured in the 2021 budget, was 74 billion for the whole year. And if only one judgment debt was going to cost the country 592 billion cedis, then, Mr. Speaker, that would have been very detrimental to the development of this country. And one ministry is working so hard to protect the purse of this country, and we must support their financial request as captured in their estimate so that we can do more for this country. Speaker, as captured in their report, conditions of lawyers in the Attorney General has to be looked at, to the extent that some of the lawyers at the AGs operate from containers, even at the head office, at the ministry's head office in Accra. Some of the lawyers are operating from containers. And this makes it very unattractive for competent lawyers to work with the Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, I think that I want to join voices with the Honorable Ranking and the Honorable Minority Leader in calling on the Minister of Finance, especially in the media review, to look at how best we can increase the allocations that has been made to the Attorney General's office. Mr. Speaker, one thing that is significant is that in last year's expenditures, the Office of Attorney General spent or got releases of 146 million Ghana cedis. And this year, we are only approving 133 million Ghana cedis, 640,428. Mr. Speaker, this is woefully inadequate, considering the impact of their work and what they do. That we will recommend that you. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about the Ghana School of Law and the need for a bigger campus for the Ghana School of Law. Mr. Speaker, we were told at the committee level that steps are already being taken to have an extended campus around the Legon, University of Ghana, Legon area. Mr. Speaker, this requires extra resources from the Ministry of Finance, and we want to take this opportunity to call on the ministry to look at this project with the ministry, with the Ghana School of Law, so that in the media review, some extra allocations can be made for them. Mr. Speaker, on this note, I support the motion. Thank you very much.
At the conclusion of the debate, the question is, Honourable Minister, you want to respond here?
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Indeed, I'm delighted by the contributions of all the members of this, particularly delighted by the contribution of my good friend, the Honourable Benjamin Ahiafo, as well as Mr. John Kuma. Their contributions have particularly highlighted the immense difficulties and challenges that the Office of Attorney General and Minister of Justice is laboring under. And I'm very much sure that this will indeed form the basis for an augmentation of the budget, at least as will be presented in the media review. Speaker, I thank you in anticipation of an approval of the budget estimate presented by the Office of Attorney General. Thank you very much.
At the conclusion of the debate, the question is, all in favor of the motion, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. This House has adopted, has approved the sum of 133,640,427 Ghana cedis for the services of the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice for the year ending 31st December 2021. Yes, Leader.
Speaker, may we take item 10 on page 4?
Item motion by the Minister for Communication and Digitalization.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to move that this Honorable House approves the sum of 351,216,756 cedis for the services of the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization for the year ending 31st December 2021. Mr. Speaker, the pandemic that the entire world is going through has made digital technology even more critical globally, as it provides the means for remote working, learning, communications, and transactions, and that has rapidly become the norm and is helping the world recover from the negative effects of the pandemic. This has made the work of the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization even more critical. In the past year, the e-government network infrastructure was improved. More MDAs and MMDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies, metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies were enrolled, and more will be enrolled onto the e-government platform to provide a more secure, robust, and scalable means of improving and extending the provision of services. The ministry has also provided a virtual working tool for all public servants, and 350 were enrolled onto the system. 100 more will be enrolled onto the smart workplace this year. And that has enabled them, public servants, to work remotely, even at the height of the pandemic, and enabled government to continue functioning. The Rural Telephony Project is also being undertaken by the ministry. With its expanded mandate, Mr. Speaker, even more resources will be required to enable us facilitate the digital transformation of the public service and make government to citizen engagement more efficient, facilitate faster interactions, and create and promote transparency and reduce corruption in the public service. And so, many of the initiatives that have been done, digitalization of public records, the e-applications in various sectors, from Parliament itself, the Office of the Attorney General, the Judicial Service, the Births and Deaths Registry, the Registrar General's Department, e-education, e-health, telemedicine are all being facilitated. A major project being undertaken by the ministry with the assistance of the World Bank has seen additional funding of $105 million allocated, which is even more than the original funding of the project, in view of the critical nature of the services that the ministry is providing for the public service and facilitating in the private sector. We will continue to do so. We have challenges with the amount of money, the ceiling allocated to the ministry by the Ministry of Finance. But we're working with them to ensure that under the Ghana Cares program, sufficient funding will be provided for the digitization of the public service and to facilitate more technology uptake in the public service and aid in revenue generation for the exchequer. We are looking forward to working even more closely with all sector agencies, ministries, departments to facilitate their work as we enable them to utilize technology in the performance of their duties. Mr. Speaker, I so move.
Yes, Chairman of the committee. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion that this Honorable House approves the sum of 351,216,756 for the services of the Ministry of Communications, digitalization for the year ending 31st December 2021. Right Honorable Speaker, I believe the Minister has enumerated a number of interventions done by the Ministry. But at the committee level, it was obvious that the Ministry required an amount of 1,287,695,447.91 pesos. However, in compliance with the ceiling requirements set by the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry was compelled to scale down its forecasted figures. The committee noted though the Ministry expanded budgetary allocation of 351 million did not cater for the added function of digitalization. The committee was informed that the Ministry of Finance is considering the possibility of allocating additional funding through the mid-year budget. Also, enough have been made in the Ghana Care project to cater for the digitalization or the e-governance system of our country. Mr. Speaker, the committee also noted that there are quite important institutions under the ministry. For instance, the Cybersecurity Agency, which is a newly baby of the ministry, that the act was passed in 2020. Mr. Speaker, the agency is beset with a couple of problems. The funding of that institution need to be looked at. We pray that the Ministry of Finance will allocate enough resources to the ministry to be able to cater for an agency like the Cyber Security Center. Again, Mr. Speaker, a very important institution like the Data Protection Commission also is cash-strapped. That commission is solely run by its internally generated fund. But of course, for them to generate and work as we all expect them to do, that commission needs to be resourced. We commend them for the bold initiatives in many sectors of our country, because the COVID-19, everything we do in this country relies on the effort of the Ministry for Communications. And that is why we pray that the government or the ministry will do well to allocate the required funds that the ministry needs. Mr. Speaker, I second the motion. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Member from Local.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, in contributing to the report of the Committee on Communications, I want to draw the attention of the House and the Hansard Department, excuse me, to Table 3 on page 7 of the report. There is an error in there emanates from the budget statement itself. When you look at the IGF and the sources of funding, the total amount there is 37,777,418. And this is from the budget. However, when you do the calculation of all the figures under the various classifications, you should actually have
37,777,419, not 418. We have drawn the attention of the Ministry of Finance to this, and they have indicated that during the appropriations, they would effect the correction, just for the records. And so our report had to report exactly what was in the budget. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the Ministry of Communication, I must say that on the advice of one of my seniors in Parliament, I would have said there is nothing more to say, and then sit down. Because, Mr. Speaker, what can I say? The Ministry of Communication and Digitalization went to the government and asked for 1.3 billion Ghana cedis, including 200 from donor partners. So I was expecting in excess of 1 billion Ghana cedi to execute its new mandate of digitalization, which is the key yardstick for government over the next 4 years. Even listening to the finance minister at his vetting, all he kept talking about was digitalization, digitalization. When the ministry made a request for in excess of 1 billion, the finance minister, I don't know whether it is the former or the temporary, approved 37 million Ghana cedis, 37, out of a request of 1 billion. How do you expect, what miracle do you expect the Minister for Communication and Digitalization to perform? It's simply sloganeering. Put your money where your mouth is. If a minister asks you for 1 billion from government, she asked for 250 million from donor partners. The donor partners have given her 250 million. You, the 1 billion she's asked for, you gave her 37 million, not even 100 million. If government was a church, it would not even qualify for tithes. What we expect the ministry to perform? And so this is why I said I would have just sat down and said there is nothing more to say. But that would be disservice to the people of this country. So I'll say more. Minister, the ministry in 2020, in the light of COVID, took credible steps or critical steps to ensure that because of the expanded use of technology, they allocated additional spectrum to MTN and Vodafone so that the children in Bekwai who needed to go online and the children in Ningo Pram who needed to go online to study could gain access to the internet and proper bandwidth. That is one thing we want to commend the ministry for and hope that going forward a definite position will be taken on that spectrum matter. Are they giving additional spectrum? Because we need to know at what price also that will be given. Mr. Speaker, this House approved the Cybersecurity Act, Act 1038, last year. And in that act, we inserted Section 31 of the Act, which was sources of funds for the Cybersecurity Fund. Mr. Speaker, it will be important that we understand the steps that are going to be taken to actualize the formation of the Cybersecurity Fund. Because we cannot be talking digitalization and all the various ICT policies we want to roll out without having a solid shield to protect us. Lest members of parliament, the Right Honorable Speaker, even the President gets exposed to cyber threats. Today, as we speak, our Cybersecurity Authority is not an authority because they are still a center. Because what will make them an authority has not been done. The Ministry of Finance, again, Ministry of Finance, and Minister Temporary. You were supposed to allocate $15 million as a seed fund for the commencement of the building for the Cybersecurity Authority. Even the seed fund, the Ministry of Finance is doing lala sulala. They gave only 8 million. And so up till now, we have not been able to, up till now, we've not been able to even get to pay the seed funding for the building for the Cybersecurity Authority. Our Cybersecurity Authority, that should be protecting our children and myself and you, they are perching in somebody's building. So if, in the words of my ranking member, ABA Fuseni, if it takes the goat to scare away an intruder, it is the shame of the dog. Because if the cybersecurity authority is now perching in somebody's building, how can they protect you and I? And so we need to see proper action in line of cybersecurity in this year. A firm decision also has to be taken on the status of the Ghana-India Kofi Annan Center for Excellence. Because it is important that that institution is given all the support that it needs. There are conversations about moving into the Ministry of Education. Let us complete it quickly. Let it become a fully, an institution fully under the Ministry of Education so that they can have their act in place. Mr. Speaker, the Data Protection Commission is another very important agency under the ministry. It is important that the Data Protection Commission takes its mandate seriously and delivers proper protection of citizens in this period. Mr. Speaker, members of Parliament will bear me out. Almost every public building you went into during COVID, and even up to now, they take your data, your name, your phone number, and all of that. How many of these institutions are accredited data processors? Some of them even take very personal detail. The Data Protection Commission has a mandate to ensure that anybody taking the data of Ghanaian citizens registered and is doing the right, is handling that and processing that data in the right manner. Mr. Speaker, GMET, we came before this House and in the last Parliament passed the bill for GMET to ensure that GMET will get their fair share of revenue. But Mr. Speaker, after passing that act, the Civil Aviation Authority and the Ghana Airport Company are still playing hide and seek with GMET. It is important that we have an interministerial joint working group with parliamentary oversight to ensure that what is due GMET comes to them. That's the Ghana Meteorological Agency. Comes to them so that they can properly function as a leader in weather reporting in this country. Mr. Speaker, NITA, the last one I'll speak about. NITA is besaddled and befuddled with a lot of debt, simply because we have not given proper life to the Electronic Transactions Act, the ETA, which basically sets up NITA. NITA must be able to charge service for every e-service in this country, but we are not implementing it. In the same vein, Mr. Speaker, even Parliament House, that NITA offers services to. Parliament House, Yedika, or Hienyomo, to which we owe. We owe NITA.
Well, whilst we're talking about, we must also confirm that we're not satisfied with the services they were providing.
Mr. Speaker, if you do not provide you good services,
we get the service before we pay.
Well,
if we are not getting a good service, we won't pay.
Mr. Speaker, respectfully, NITA is providing what our payment is allowing them to provide. If all agencies, and Mr. Speaker, most of the government agencies take redundancy services from other MNOs, and they pay in full. And that is why those MNOs are able to provide you the level of service that you think is good enough. Pay NITA, and NITA will provide you better service. But if we don't pay them, and NITA owes its service providers, the service that NITA will provide to us is also going to be questionable. So we need to support our own, support NITA, so that NITA can provide services. And Mr. Speaker, the last thing that I will say to the Finance Ministry is this capping policy. When will it come to an end? Mr. Speaker, apart from Data Protection Commission, every other agency under the ministry is capped. And they shouldn't complain. Even our National Blood Bank, their revenue is capped by the Finance Ministry. ABB Groma Dance Theatre, their revenue is capped by the ministry. Even Pantai Hospital, their revenue is capped by the Ministry of Finance. How much more the National IT Agency or any of the other agencies with fanciful names? Say, Abodam for hospital cry, you capping revenue. To wait, if even mad people's hospital, we are capping their revenue. How much more computers? With this, Mr. Speaker, even though we asked for 1 billion and they gave us 37 million, we will see what miracle the Ministry of Communication can perform in the year 2021. I thank you.
Leadership.
Speaker, leadership will yield to the Honorable Tampere.
Very well.
I'm most grateful, Right Honorable Speaker, to contribute to the debate for the
the approval of the 2021 annual budget estimate for the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization. Mr. Speaker, I believe a lot has been said about the report, except to add that the ministry was allocated 151,840,492 on page 3. In due course, during the media review, 99,239,866 was added to the ministry's budget, bringing the total 251,080,358. Right, Honorable Speaker, the allocation for this year, 351 million, I believe, even though it's woefully inadequate as compared to the request from the ministry, is quite significant. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Finance, in the course of the hearing, indicated that it is considering very, very strongly the possibility of allocating additional funds under the Ghana Cares program in the budget to support the ministry's expanded mandate. This, for me, is very heartwarming, and I believe that the shortfall that my very good friend, Honorable Sam George, mentioned will be adequately catered for in the course of the year. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the fact that some of the sector agencies were unable to meet their targets, it's quite significant that others were able to do so. And I think that they deserve commendation. I believe the minister will be in a good position to single them out and then give them the necessary commendation. With the specific issue of GMET, Mr. Speaker, the Act establishing Ghana Meteorological Agency provides for payment of the services rendered by GMET to Ghana Civil Aviation and the Ghana Airport Company Limited, based on the traffic and the volume of passengers. Mr. Speaker, I believe this interagency arrangement has to be strongly encouraged. But from what we did just at the sitting, we were able to do on our own a calculation which gave us not less than $1 million that the two agencies owed GMET. I believe these issues have to be considered very strongly at the interministerial level so that financing can be made available to GMET in view of the fact that we need to have some predictability in terms of the weather forecasts. And everybody here, I believe strongly, will be able to attest to the fact that GMET has been doing well lately. In the past, when they tell you it's going to be sunny, then you need to get an umbrella and prepare for rain. These days, the data has changed. They give you adequate and accurate prediction, and it's timely. When they tell you it's 6 a.m. it's going to rain, chances are that there will be shower, if nothing at all. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I add my support to the motion for the approval of this budget for the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization. Much obliged, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Is that the leadership nominee? Very well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. I rise to support the motion for the sum of 351,216,756 for the services of the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization for the year ending 31st December 2021. However, Mr. Speaker, I have some few observations to make. First is the rural telephony project that the ministry initiated Mr. Speaker, in the report or the budget estimate, the government through the Ministry of Communication and Digitalization secured some funding for the development of about 2,016 cell sites to cover at least 25% of the population. Mr. Speaker, as of December 2020, only about 410 out of the 2,016 sites were built across the country. Mr. Speaker, the reports indicate that the remaining 1,606 sites will be completed by 2022. But if you look at the scale at which the project is progressing, it is not encouraging, and we don't think that the ministry will meet this. We are told that the ministry piloted about 46 sites using the ECG pilot, but started the pilot origin. And we think that there are more rural communities that need the services of rural connectivity. So we are urging on the ministry to ensure that this is done expeditiously so that a lot more communities can be covered, particularly in the north. If you look where I hail, there are a lot of communities that are without connectivity, and we would like this done immediately. Mr. Speaker, DTT. Mr. Speaker, in 2006, the Geneva Agreement indicated that Ghana, or the whole country, especially Africa, was to migrate from analog to digital by June 2015. Another deadline was set, and we have met that deadline as well. In 2020, the minister indicated to stakeholders that by July 2020, the ministry will commence the migration process. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, nothing has been done. And again, we are urging the ministry to expedite action. In fact, the minister should tell us when this project will be completed. Mr. Speaker, let me add my voice to the issue of the the Cybersecurity Authority. With our interaction with the authority, we realized that even though the Act 1038 was passed last year, the authority is yet to be fully established. We know and cannot underestimate the importance of this authority because it serves as a police to our cyberspace. It protects our children, businesses, governments, and individuals. We want to indicate that the monies budgeted for this authority should be released without delay. Like my senior colleague said, the authority don't have vehicles to operate with. They don't even have staff to work with. So therefore, if that is done, they will be able to work to meet its expectations. The issue of capping is a concern to the committee as well. We realized that the Postal Service or Postal and Courier Service Authority Commission, for example, was able to meet their IGF 2020, paid into government chest, and yet less than half of the money was released for them. But when they appeared before the committee, we realized that they didn't even have vehicles to operate with. Under the COVID, their services have become even more important than they are today. So we are urging the Ministry of Finance to ensure that the capping on these agencies be removed to allow them to be self-sufficient to operate for the betterment of this country. Mr. Speaker, allow me to also indicate that the Kofi Annan ICT Training Center had their compensation budget reduced by about 42%. This is unacceptable. The people have, or the workers have to be motivated enough to be able to work to achieve targets or results. So we are urging that the monies that were reduced should be restored for them to be able to function. Again, the Data Protection Commission. For the past 4 years have been living in a rented premises, paying so much rent. Meanwhile, the monies allocated to them in 2020 was not fully released. We are urging them, through the minister, to assist them get a government accommodation so that they will be able to reduce costs in the way forward. GMET, for example, Mr. Speaker, can be self-sufficient if they are allowed to raise funds that is required of them by the law that they operate with. We realize that GMET offers services to the aviation industry, but there is no cooperation between the GMET and the aviation industry to allow them to access the funding that is required of them. So we are also calling on the minister to form an inter-ministerial committee between the Ministry of Communications and the Aviation Ministry, and then also the Fisheries Ministry, to ensure that they work together to get monies that are required of GMET. Mr. Speaker, on this note, I want to support the allocation of 321,216,756 Ghana cedis due the ministry. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, just a small correction that I'd like to make. The Rural Telephony Project was launched on 4th November 2020. And by the end of December, 400 sites had been rolled out. And so if we continue at this pace, it is likely that we would complete this project ahead of schedule. So it's not correct that it is being done at a snail pace. I must thank the committee for the thorough work done in scrutinizing the budgets of the ministry and its agencies, and pledge that we'll continue the cordial relations that exist between us and the committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, I was going to put a question.
Speaker, with the greatest respect, before you put the question, I heard the Honorable Sam George in his contribution. He made some statements. Speaker, taking time to go through the budget, and I think there were inaccuracies, and I seek your leave to correct these inaccuracies. If the honourable member will take the budget statement, if you have a copy of the budget statement, take it. And then let's go to page 258. You find a table there, Appendix 11B. Non-tax revenue actuals and 2021 projections. If you come to item 4, Blood Bank, and then you go to 2020, retention and projections, you see the 100%. And then when you go to 2021, it's recording absolute figures. And if you work out the arithmetic, it is also 100% retention. Now, when you come down to Pantine Hospital, 2020, 100% retention. 2021, absolute figures. If you work out the arithmetic, 100% retention. Again, Ankafu Hospital. So you sought to create the impression that there has been capping and there have been drastic reduction of these figures. However, this is the budget statement, and it doesn't reflect same as you alluded. Speaker, I think there was an inaccuracies in his statement, and I'm seeking to correct these inaccuracies. And I'm giving you evidence to that.
Yes. Right Honorable Speaker. It is not in dispute what the situation was in 2020. However, capping was introduced in 2017. And so if you want us to take the records, we can take the 2017, 2018, and 2019 budgets. And in all of those budgets, you will see that all the institutions I spoke about were capped. And I can provide that to the House. 2017, 2018, 2019, Ankafo, National Blood Bank, and the Bibigroma Dance Theatre were all capped in 2017, 2018, and 2019. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is, at the conclusion of the debate, all in favour of the motion say aye. All against say no. The ayes. The motion is carried. This House has approved the sum of 351,216,756 for the services of the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization for the year ending 31st December 2021. Yes, what next?
Speaker, item 9 on page 4. Thank you.
Item 9, motion by the Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this Honourable House approves a sum of 165,915,048 Ghana cedis for the services of the Electoral Commission for the year ending 31st December 2021. Mr. Speaker, the Electoral Commission has core responsibilities captured under Article 45 of the Constitution and includes the following. The exercise to compile the register of voters and revise it at such periods as may be determined by law. They demarcate the electoral boundaries for both national and local government elections. They conduct and supervise elections, all public elections and referenda. They educate the people on the electoral process and its purposes. They undertake programs for the expansion of the registration of voters and also perform such other functions as may be prescribed by law. The Electoral Commission for 2020, as we all do know, conducted the presidential and general elections successfully. And for this year, Mr. Speaker, they have to continue business as usual. It's for that reason that an allocation of a sum of 165,915,048 Ghana cedis has been made to the Electoral Commission for a discharge of their functions for 2021 year. Speaker, and it's in this regard that we're seeking approval of Parliament for this allocation to be made to the Commission. As so submit, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Chairman of the Committee. Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Speaker, I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Majority Leader that that sum of money of 165,915,048 Ghana cedis be approved for the activities of the Electoral Commission. They conducted the 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections. Our democracy is evolving. Mr. Speaker, the EU have observed that the coalition of results this time round was not done in a manner which is transparent. Therefore, we'll be calling for some electoral reforms that will allow for more openness and transparency in the declaration of results. We saw the excesses of the security agencies at some of the coalition center, and we need to resolve what to do to improve it. Mr. Speaker, what is important is that the Electoral Commission currently, as we speak, have not been able to pay some electoral officers. And may I, with respect, Mr. Speaker, refer you to page 9, running to page 10 of the committee's report, and to make a strong recommendation that the Ministry of Finance, as a matter of urgency, releases the sum of 216,029,34798 million for the Electoral Commission to be able to pay allowances to election officials, which is in the region of 120,609,650. There was also some contract printing, 25.9 million, election materials, 15 million. So, Mr. Speaker, whilst we are approving their budget for 2021, there is an outstanding obligation. Mr. Speaker, we were not too satisfied with the performance of the chairperson, particularly in respect of Techima. When time happened in 2008, we saw Dr. Afarijan, then Electoral Commissioner, move himself to the field. And we expect that in future, when there are delays and unnecessary delays in declarations arising out of coalition difficulty, she will take responsibility as a chairperson of the commission to move in. Mr. Speaker, my final observation is recruitment into the Electoral Commission was done in a manner that the Ghanaian public couldn't follow through, which came up when we considered her budget. I think they recruited under someone advising them recruitment into a public service institution. That is wrong. If the Electoral Commission is to recruit, it must be done in the open, it must be advertised openly to avoid partisan persons into the commission to guarantee their neutrality and independence. Mr. Speaker, we observe that she's the first person to have declared results and corrected it. She said she updated the results. That is not good enough. She should next time hasten cautiously. With this, Mr. Speaker, I support the motion.
Yes, Deputy Chief, Deputy Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion. In supporting Mr. Speaker, I'll make few comments about the report. And on page 8, paragraph 9.3, shortfall in budget allocation. Mr. Speaker, the committee noted that the Electoral Commission requires an amount of 396,594,864 cedis 98 pesos to meet its operational activities for 2021 and also to settle outstanding obligations arising out of the conduct of the 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections and other operational expenses in 2020. The amount is made up of 180,565,517 cedis for 2020 operational activities and 260,029,347 cedis 98 pesos for the settlement of outstanding arrests. Mr. Speaker, this amount was supposed to be given to the Electoral Commission in 2019. It was not given. It was referenced because of procurement delays and was supposed to be released in 2020. Mr. Speaker, when you pile up outstanding amount or activities in the Electoral Commission in years like this, when you get to the election year, it brings a very difficult challenge. And Mr. Speaker, it is on this note that when we were passing the budget, the Electoral Commission was asking for an amount which we thought was too huge. Then the Minister of Finance was saying it was too much for them to be released in that year. We are starting with the same process. In 2024, there will be election. If 2021, they are asking for 396, you are giving them 165, meaning there's an arrest. 2022, they will come and it will be the same process. Meanwhile, 2022 or 23, there will be different level elections. So we are pleading with the Minister of Finance, not instead of the 165 million, give the 396 million to the Electoral Commission to be able to pay the outstanding arrest of 260 million, so that that doesn't become an accumulated arrest that going forward you'll be able to keep up with time. If you don't do this, and we come to district level election, which is more difficult to organize, and sometimes very expensive to organize, where are we going to get the money to be able to organize the district level election that is ahead of us? And Mr. Speaker, why should we be carrying 2020 parliamentary and presidential election debt in the 2021-2022? Whatever it is, and God being so good, the chairman of the committee and the leader of the House has responsibility on finance now. So this is the time to bail out the Electoral Commission, so that the outstanding arrest does not keep on appearing in our report. It has been in our report since 2019. 2019 we couldn't pay, 2020 we couldn't pay, 2021 it is still in our report. Mr. Speaker, it doesn't augur well for a democratic country like Ghana. It is therefore my humble submission that whatever it is, the Minister for Finance, the Electoral Commission is not even asking for 400 million. It's asking for only 396 million for 2021. Mr. Speaker, even when they ask for 1.something billion in 2020 because of emergencies, you were able to give. So why don't you give this 396 to make way and to clear all outstanding arrests so that they will be on a sound footing? This is my humble submission, and I hope the Minister for Finance will hear it in good faith. Bail out the Electoral Commission by paying the outstanding arrests. We are all products of that elections that were organized. Therefore, if there is an outstanding arrest, there must be a collective effort to clear it. And that is my submission. With these few words, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Whip for the minority certainly must not over-exaggerate the strength of the Minister with temporary responsibility for finance when he to cause the release of the outstanding arrears to the Electoral Commission. The man with full responsibility when he arrives on the sea will be so charged. But the man with temporary responsibility, the Speaker, I will pray and entreat him not to lead me into temptations. But having said so, the Speaker, the minority leader also made a point about the recruitment into the Electoral Commission, which must be transparent and indeed above boards, above partisan considerations. Mr. Speaker, our Constitution provides in Article 42 that every citizen of Ghana of 18 years of age or above and of sound mind has the right to vote and is entitled to be registered as a voter for the purposes of public elections and referenda. The officials of the Electoral Commission qualify to vote, and they have registered to vote. To the extent that they cast their votes, they belong to one party or the other. What is required of them is to demonstrate absolute neutrality and impartiality in the conduct of their affairs. And we must insist on that. In my own constituency, I have people who belong to the other side of the political divide. I know them. I work with them, and I tolerate them. All that I implore my people to look out for is ensure that they don't dabble in any matters that will undermine my own integrity and my strength in the constituency. But Mr. Speaker, I'm friends with them. We sit together, we talk together. But officers of the commission, at whatever level, must demonstrate absolute impartiality, and we must insist on that. Having said so, Mr. Speaker, I am thankful that all of us agree that the outstanding amounts that should go to the Electoral Commission, we should all come together and press they are reimbursed to avoid price or cost escalations, so that people who are even threatening to take them to court would be put at bay. Other than that, Mr. Speaker, I believe the outcomes will not be good for us as a country. But, Mr. Speaker, I thank colleagues for their contributions, and I invite you to put the question for them. Thank you very much.
At the conclusion of the debate, all in favor of the motion say aye. All against say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. This House has approved a sum of 165,915,048 Ghana cedis for the services of the Electoral Commission for the year ending 31st December 2021.
Speaker, we can now take item number 12 on page. I seek your leave for the majority leader to move the motion. As I have engaged, we've come to an agreement. Leadership have come to an agreement on this.
Yes, Honorable Deputy.
Mr. Speaker, in fact, yesterday we resisted that motion being taken on the grounds that the minister should come and account to us how the allocation we made to him in 2020 and justify why we should give him another one for 2021. But the leader of the House explained to us that we are actually not in normal times, that there are no deputy ministers in place, and the minister himself is indisposed. There is result of that, we don't have control over nature. Based on that, Mr. Speaker, we may give in for the Minister responsible for Finance and Minister for Parliamentary Affairs to move the motion on behalf of the Minister. Mr. Speaker, that notwithstanding, we wish him well. But that notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, we want to protect the image of this House and to let ministers know that when they are to appear before us, they must prioritize Parliament over any other activity, so that in subsequent days, we will not be passing budgets in abstention. With these few words, Mr. Speaker, the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs and Minister responsible for Finance can move the motion for the House.
Yes, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you and I thank colleagues for the understanding. The colleagues would know that I am one person who has been very much insistent that ministers should be in the House as part of the discharge of their responsibilities, and they should prioritize coming to Parliament. The Speaker, except in this case that the person is still indisposed and he cannot avail himself. So I'm thankful to colleagues for this understanding. In which case, Mr. Speaker, I would beg to move that this House approves the sum of 1,183,592,230 Ghana cedis for the services of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture for the year ending December 31st, 2021. The Speaker, the Ministry has the core responsibility of performing the following functions: they plan and advise the government on agricultural development policies, administration and management of the agricultural sector of the economy. And we do know that the mainstay of the country remains agriculture. Speaker, they also monitor and evaluate agricultural sector on developments in crops, livestock, irrigation, and mechanization. As well, they develop agricultural programs and projects and collaborate in agricultural research. The Speaker, it is for the performance of these functions that the sector has been allocated an amount of 1,183,592,230 Ghana cedis for the performance of their functions. And Speaker, I do so humbly move and appeal to the House for support and approval of this allocation. I so submit, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Chairman of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion that this Honorable House approves an amount of 1,183,592,230 Ghana cedis for the Ministry of Food and Agriculture for the financial year ending 31st December 2021. In doing so, Mr. Speaker, I present the committee's report and urge the Hazard Department to capture the entire report as having been read, while I read certain portions of the report, including the conclusion. Mr. Speaker, an amount of 1,113,669,183 Ghana cedis was expended for the year 2020. Mr. Speaker, this amount was spent on a priority initiative implemented under the ministry's budget programs, starting from planting for food and jobs, rearing for food and jobs, planting for export and rural development, green villages, plant protection and regulation, promotion of mechanization services, irrigation development, and post-harvest management. Mr. Speaker, the outlook for 2021, the total budget allocated to the ministry amounted to 1,183,592,230 Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, the committee has thoroughly examined the budget estimates of the Ministry for Food and Agriculture 2021 financial year and is satisfied that the policies and programs outlined for the year will go a long way to ensure adequate growth of agricultural sector. The committee accordingly recommends to the House to adopt this report and approve the total sum of 1,183,592,230 Ghana cedis to support the programs and activities of the Ministry for Food and Agriculture for the 2021 financial year. Respectfully submitted, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Ranking Member.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion. And in doing so, Mr. Speaker, I would like to make some few comments. Mr. Speaker, when you look at page 3 of the report, table 1, you realize that the ministry was given initial budget approval of 965 million. It was revised upwards to 1.3 billion to enable the ministry pay for its arrears. Mr. Speaker, at the end of the year, it is reported that actual expenditure was 1.1 billion Ghana cedis. This year, the ministry projects to increase farmer participation in the Planting for Food and Jobs program to around 1.7 million. The ministry intends to increase foods by almost 30% and improve seeds by over 20%. Unfortunately, allocation to the entire sector is around the same 1.1 billion. And so if you intend to increase your input, then one would expect that expenditure will also go up. But the total allocation to the sector is almost the same as actual expenditure for 2020. And therefore, it appears that it will be difficult for the ministry to be able to meet its projections. Mr. Speaker, another important point has to do with irrigation. Irrigation comes under paragraph 5.5, and there's also another paragraph 7.2, Abagana Irrigation Development Authority. Mr. Speaker, the Polugu multipurpose dam contract was awarded almost 2 years ago. In fact, if that project is executed, it is going to be a game changer in the agricultural sector to create jobs, ensure food security, among many other advantages. Unfortunately, almost 2 years, government is unable to provide for mobilization for the project to start. Per the contract, government is supposed to pay $56 million as mobilization to enable the contractor move to the field. Last year, government paid just $11 million out of the 56. And this year, allocation to the project is around 42 million Ghana cedis, meaning that even if you add this year's allocation to what was paid last year, will not be able to pay the full amount for mobilization so the contractor start work on the project. So even as we speak, nothing is being done on site. Polugu has not taken off.
just because government of Ghana is unable to pay for mobilization under the contract. I believe that agriculture has the potential to provide food for us, to generate jobs for the teeming youth, to increase our incomes, and to restore some stability to our exchange rate. And therefore, government must provide the needed injection to use agriculture to transform the economy of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, another point has to do with point number 7.3, Agricultural Extension Service Directorate. Agricultural Extension Service Directorate. Agricultural extension is very, very important for the transformation of agriculture in our country. Unfortunately, our extension officers are seriously under-resourced. The Committee of Agriculture moved to some of the agricultural districts. And in fact, when we got to Agra in the Ashanti region, we interacted with some of the extension officers, and some of them, in their attempt to educate farmers, could not even have money to pay for the use of information centers to be able to educate our farmers. This is very unfortunate. They have the technical know-how. They want to impart this knowledge to our farmers, but unfortunately, they don't have the means to reach our farmers. It is an area that requires a lot of resources, and we expect the ministry to look at how we can make extension very useful and close to the farmers. Another important point has to do with agricultural mechanization. Mr. Speaker, we've been using the cutlasses and the hoes for a long time, and the impact has been very, very insignificant. It is time for us to mechanize agriculture to enhance productivity. And for this reason, government is subsidizing agricultural machinery for our farmers. Unfortunately, the subsidy that was placed on agricultural machinery, which was 60% during the time of the NDC, has been reduced to 40%. 40% now. This coupled with the exchange rate, obviously will make agricultural machinery very expensive for our farmers. And that will feed into the cost of production of food and eventually food prices in our country. It is something that must be reviewed to reflect the exigencies of the time. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I would like to second. Thank you.
Yes, leadership nominee. Yes, honorable member for Secretary also.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. And let me also say that I also rise in support of the motion. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to make a few remarks. Mr. Speaker, first of all, the ministry has done well when you compare it to the previous years in terms of grain production and even introduction of technology into the agri sector. But obviously, a lot remains to be done. That is why the application of simple tools has to be made. And in this wise, I urge the ministry to liaise with MESTI, the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology, because there are several agencies which are also in this, operating in this area. And I suspect that if we shed the siloed mentality and the collaboration is deepened, Ghana will indeed apply technology for the benefit of this sector. Mr. Speaker, I also want to dwell on efficiency of production. I noticed that there's a lot of drudgery in farming, especially in the forest belt. And in this wise, I urge the ministry to go together with roads, to go beyond feeder roads and go and even input or tackle the issue of farm tracks, which are tracks in between farms. Because when you take the cocoa sector, for example, a lot of the farmers are having to carry loads of cocoa on their heads. This drudgery must stop. And we now, if you did farm tracks and you couple them with aboboya technology, if you purchase the correct machinery, I'm sure the carriage of cocoa and other produce on farmers' heads will be reduced to the minimum. Again, Mr. Speaker, I believe that the time has come for even more serious intersectorial collaboration. For example, in the area of marketing, the CSIR and its agencies have a lot of equipment and research which can also be commercialized. Unfortunately, we tend to look outside our shores. A case in point is 444, where irrigation, agricultural mechanization, on page 5 on the report. It looks like a foreign-dominated equipment is what was brought in. I suspect that if the Agri Ministry engages with the CSI and then gratis, a lot of this equipment can be manufactured locally. Mr. Speaker, before I take my seat, I believe that the time for us to even in the same vein with intensified collaboration, marketing, we need to commercialize some of the government-denominated agencies, because their marketing wing is weak. I want to see the Agri Minister give lots of contracts, all based on market principles, so that the IG of these government agencies will be raised, and the budgetary allocation to them will then be complemented, so that with this setup, I'm sure that some of these agencies could even be weaned off government budget. With these few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I believe that the Ministry of Agri has done very well, and I support the motion for the approval of their budget for the year ending 31st December 2021. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, colleagues have made useful contributions. Let me express my gratitude to them, the gratitude of the Minister, indeed of the Ministry. But to relate to one or two issues. One is about the producer price of cocoa. I think there is a typo. Mr. Speaker, I think you should read 660 Ghana cedis instead of the 600 that is captured. It's 660 instead of 600. Mr. Speaker, the other one that colleagues related to, in respect of the resourcing of the agri service, I believe is most appropriate. Until recently, the extension service was more or less neglected. The new administration has recruited new people into the service. However, what is left to be done is appropriate resourcing of the recruits, because if you recruit them and don't provide adequate resourcing, all that they have will be kept in their heads. Understanding the knowledge to the farmers becomes a difficulty. So I agree with the ranking member. I should find ways of properly resourcing them in order for them to be beneficial to the farmers. Mr. Speaker, agri mechanization is also something that should concern all of us. Ghana used to be the largest producer and indeed exporter of cocoa. But Cote d'Ivoire has overtaken us. They have overtaken us because, in the main, their production is mechanized. And that is one of the reasons why they have overtaken us. Mr. Speaker, we experimented at the very outset with mechanization when in the First Republic we formed the Workers' Brigade. Unfortunately, the premise was wrong, and it was a state enterprise, not private companies undertaking the venture as is in the Côte d'Ivoire. And it came to be treated like all state enterprises. It became so wasteful. And that has, warded us off from entering into the fray again. It is not intended for the state to come into the venture. Maybe we should encourage private enterprise companies to venture into production. That is the way to go. But the state involving itself again will be disastrous, and we should not encourage that. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to express gratitude once again to colleagues for the contribution and urge that we approve of the allocation to the Ministry of Agriculture. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
At the conclusion of the debate, the question is all in favor of the motion, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. This House has approved the sum of 1,183,592,230 Ghana cedis for the services of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture for the year ending 31st December 2021. Yes, Honorable Leader.
The Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, item number 13 is on page 4. Mr. Speaker, we've engaged our colleagues' leadership, and it's been agreed.
Very sure. Good.
It's been agreed that the leader of government business represents. Thank you.
Yes. Deputy Leader, yes. Very well, Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Speaker, if ladies are talking about engagement, we should be consensual resolutions. But, Speaker, may I request the Minister responsible for employment to move the motion listed as item 13 on behalf of the Minister of Trade and Industry.
Yes, Honorable.
Thank you,
yes,
Mr.
Honorable
Speaker.
Minister for Labor and Employment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, may I have your leave to stand in for the Honorable Minister for Trade to move the motion number 13 on page 4 of the order paper. Mr. Speaker, I move that this Honorable House approve the sum of 5,517,997 Ghana cedis for the services of the Ministry of Trade and Industry for the year end 31st December 2021. Mr. Speaker, I so move.
Chairman of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to add my voice to the approval of the budget for the Ministry of Trade and Industry for the 2021 fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, in 2020, the ministry was allocated 475 million Ghana cedis, which actual releases amounted to about 386.7 million. Within this period, Mr. Speaker, the ministry was able to carry out the 10-point industrial transformation agenda set up by the President Akufo-Addo government, which saw some growth in our industrial activities, especially with the 1D1F being a flagship program that actually catapulted the industry or industrial transformation of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, within the period, we saw about 232 industries rising up in various stages of completion or of construction. About 76 of these industries are already in operation, Mr. Speaker. 107 of them, I would say, are at various stages of construction, whilst 32 are about to commence, with 13 approved and awaiting financing for commencement. Mr. Speaker, within the same period, we saw the commencement of an auto industry here in Ghana, where, for the first time, auto companies that have not set foot here in Africa are here in Ghana today assembling vehicles for home consumption and also for export. Mr. Speaker, the garment and textiles industry saw a massive facelift where, during the COVID period, Ghana, without relying on any foreign, was able to produce almost 20 million face masks locally by our textiles and garment industry. We also managed to do close to 100,000 PPEs for the use of our hospital or frontline medical staff. We did not leave the pharmaceutical industry behind, Mr. Speaker. In the event where hand sanitizers were very hard, was a very hot commodity, the Ghanaian pharmaceutical industry was able to manufacture hand sanitizers to cover the total supply requirement of the country. Mr. Speaker, within the period, the Ministry of Trade and Industry managed, with assistance of other ministries and ministers, I would say, to secure the secretariat of the AFCFTA here in Ghana. And as I speak, Ghana, or by being specific, Accra, happens to be the commercial center of Africa. In 2021, however, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Finance has allocated almost 530 million to the Trade and Industry Ministry. Mr. Speaker, within the period, what the ministry intends to do is to add about 76 of these one district, one factory companies to what is already in existence, the 232. Also not forgetting that the CABAS, which was the effective way of the president or the government ensuring that MSMEs were covered as far as their capital was concerned, would also be continued within the same year. Mr. Speaker, we have a serious challenge with Gratis Foundation, which happens to be a solution facilitation center, which is supposed to support the one industry, one factory companies with the manufacturing and production of spare parts to actually forestall the importation of same. But unfortunately, the support to Gratis Foundation, Mr. Speaker, is a bit far-fetched, and recommend that the Ministry of Finance will assist Gratis Foundation to be or stand on their feet and let them work to support this One District, One Factory program that the President has set out. The Speaker, in the deliberations also, we realized that Ghana Standards Authority and Free Zones Board were also shortchanged as far as budgetary concerns or budget allocations were concerned. The two companies live virtually, I would say, on IGF. Government does not support these two companies when it comes to capex or goods and services. So it stands to reason that they have to rely on their IGF to cover these two expenditure items. It is sad to note that during the period of 2020, the capping system affected these two companies, but lo and behold, we managed to get the Ministry of Finance to come in and explain why it's supposed to be so. And we've been informed that the mid-year budget, all these concerns will be ironed out and all these problems would fizzle out. Mr. Speaker, whilst I'm concluding, I'd like to mention that the committee, having carefully examined the 2021 annual budget estimates on the Ministry of Trade and Industry to the House to adopt its report and approve the sum of 529,517,997 Ghana cedis for the year ending 31st December 2021, being budgetary allocation for the Ministry of Trade and Industry to enable it to undertake its programs and activities for 2021. With these few words, I say thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to speak on the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion for the approval of the 2021 annual budget for the Ministry of Trade. Mr. Speaker, I have the following observations. Mr. Speaker, the 2020 budget, the allocated amount was 475,344,936 Ghana cedis. The amount that was released was 386 million. And some change, Mr. Speaker, it meant that almost 89 million was not released. Across the agencies, this very point was raised, that it was part of the challenges they faced. A shortfall in the releases affected a lot of the planned activities of the ministries and their agencies. Mr. Speaker, the Ghana Enterprise Agency, formerly the MBSSI, as part of COVID relief, and in the middle of the year was allocated an amount of 750 million Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, the actual expenditure was 450 million Ghana cedis. That's a huge amount. That was meant, good intention, in the peak of the pandemic. Small businesses, traders were in hardship, and the intention was that this amount was supposed to be sent out to support Ghanaian business, especially women traders across the country. We were told that 277,511 beneficiaries got this money, and it ranged from 300 Ghana cedi to 300,000 Ghana cedi. Mr. Speaker, as I said, good intention. Well, remember, this money, 450 million, was disbursed in the peak of election And it is important, and this committee had a real interest to make sure that the right things were done. Happily, the MBSSI informed us that they've engaged the services of an audit firm. Mr. Speaker, we demanded that we would have to have a complete report of that audit to understand that the regional and district spread of how that money was distributed, who got what in each district by name, because this 450 million Ghana cedi was sent mostly by a phone, Momo. And it is important that the people's money must be accounted for well. And this is something that the committee is taking a keen interest in. Mr. Speaker, one of the main focus of trade and industry was the flagship program, One District, One Factory. The question that I asked was, Mr. Speaker, it's important we know how much money is being sunk into this very important program. We were told that 232 projects were at various stages of completion. 7 was under construction. Now, Mr. Speaker, it's important to note the amount of money that is being expended. We were told that 603 million worth of import duty exemptions on capital goods and raw materials was approved by this House for 37 1F companies. This House has always been concerned about that. We were told that 2 billion Ghana cedi was mobilized from participating financial institutions to support these businesses. We were told that 230 million in interest subsidy was also paid. Mr. Speaker, we asked where the factories were located. We were given a regional spread, 4 here, 10 here. We are still waiting to have the comprehensive list by name from the Ministry of Trade on each of these factories. But it's important that the question is asked, and this is the question we asked the Minister of Trade. The key to creating jobs, which is really the focus of 1D, 1F, Mr. Speaker, it is basically to support the private sector. And what the private sector really needs, Mr. Speaker, right now, is lower taxes, Mr. Speaker, low interest rates. Bottom line, that's how they can create jobs and hire more people. And I think it is important we state here that government must focus attention in that area. Mr. Speaker, there was also a discussion on the strategic agro industries. The ministry drummed up automobile companies like Katanga doubling its production, and talked about other companies that are coming in, VW and others. Mr. Speaker, what was important was the strategy of the state in making sure that the thousands who are in the car dealership, the Compe business and others that are really key part of this economy are not going to be left out in this strategy. The minister explained it, but it's important we keep our eye on that. Mr. Speaker, we also met Ghana Export Promotion Authority, and their role is very important in this period where African continental free trade is in. It is important that we prepare the Ghana Export Promotion Authority to lead an effort to prepare Ghanaian companies to compete, to take advantage of AFTA. It is critical in this era of AFTA, and take advantage. Just having a headquarters in Ghana is not enough. How do we position the Ghana Export Authority to lead this effort to make sure that Ghana is leading in this AFTA trade that is really the key to changing our fortunes? Mr. Speaker, thanks to this effort of this House, the Ghana International Trade Commission is also in operation. One of the basic things they've done was the resolution of a dispute between Aluworks and a Chinese company, which was basically dumping products here. And they have actually determined that that Chinese company was at fault, and they have really done very well. I think that the Ghana International Trade Commission, Mr. Speaker, must be strengthened with budgetary allocation. If you look at their low staff strength and their logistics that they need, that they said, if we are able to support them, They will do a lot of work to ensure that dumping of products into our market that is really killing local industries is something that will be minimized. It is very, very important. Mr. Speaker, I think the point has been made about GSA and the Ghana Free Trade. These two companies are not getting goods and services, capex from the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Speaker, you realize on an annual basis what is happening is that, for example, GSA is giving 10 million. They are capped at 41%. That's over 10 million. And then the actual release from the Ministry of Finance is 9 million. You realize that they need to pay critical staff. And so they end up pushing that money into goods and services. So they overspend on goods and services. And you ask them, and they will explain to you that the reason is because of the critical staff we need, and we need to pay them. The reality is that these companies can really function without government subvention. And it is important that, Mr. Speaker, this House support the free zones and the GSA to be win off from government so that they can operate. GSA alone is expected to have presence across every district in the country. They need to have 4,000 employees. And the only way they can do that is for them to be won from government some sort of independence to move. And it's critical we do that. Mr. Speaker, on that note, I urge this Honorable House to adopt this report and approve the sum of 9,517,997 for the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Thank you.
Leadership nominee. Is that right? Yes.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity given me to support the motion that the Honorable House approves the sum of 529,517,997 for the services of the Ministry of Trade and Industry for the year ending 31st December 2021. Mr. Speaker, the sector ministry has an overall vision to establish Ghana as a globally competitive manufacturing and trade hub in Africa. Given this vision, Mr. Speaker, it is important that we all support them to be able to have this budget to carry out the mandate that. Mr. Speaker, let me zoom in to the one district, one factory, which came up strongly when the committee met the minister. The minister and his team informed us that a total of 232 projects were under construction, and that 76 of them were currently in operation. Mr. Speaker, the interesting thing about this are that jobs have been created in all of these areas that we have these factories running. Indeed, we probed further and got to know from the minister that 139,331 direct and indirect jobs had been created by the factories that were in operation at the moment. Additionally, he told us that 285,915 jobs were also created by those under construction. Indeed, all 16 regions have some sort of factories underway. The Ashanti region, which had the highest, had 44, and Oti and the Northeast regions had 5 each. So contrary to what my friend on the other side is saying, that we can't even find the factories, that is not so. We have them in every region. All 16 regions were identified as having some of these factories there. Mr. Speaker, the Ghana Enterprises Agency, which was formerly called the National Board for Small-Scale Industries, also had done a very good job, and we also need to commend them.
Mr. Speaker, the Ghana Enterprises Agency had been the anchor for transmitting some of these small amounts during the COVID times to the small, medium industries, and these were doing very well. They were using technology, which we think we should encourage them. So approving this budget for them will do them very good. So, Speaker, the capping, which all other speakers have talked about, was one thing that was also threatening some of the agencies in the ministry. So maybe we have to look at that as well. On this note, Mr. Speaker, I will urge the House to approve the sum of 529,517,997 cedis for the services of the ministry. On this note, I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Mutala will speak for leadership.
Yes, Honorable Mutala.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute in supporting the motion to approve the budget for the Ministry of Trade for the 2021 fiscal year. Right Honorable Speaker, in doing so, I would like to make certain things clear. And listening to my colleague, he indicated the Minister for Trade provided us with evidences of the 1D, 1F. What we were provided with was the regional breakdown of the 1D, 1F. And I remember we insisted that we wanted the detailed locations. Interestingly, the deputy of this committee, the deputy ranking for this committee insisted that he wanted to know in Mboli, the 1D, 1F that is purportedly provided for his district. The last time I checked, we haven't been provided.
Hold on. Yes, what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, thank you for allowing me on this point of order. Mr. Speaker, my colleague on the other side is probably not aware that when this request came to the minister, they've sent the response.
Which request?
The request of asking, when the minister brought the regional distribution of 1F, they wanted the very indication of the districts and the names of the factories. Minister said he was going to bring the information. Minister, he has since brought them. And he has not received them. So he cannot make a pronouncement on it here.
Your point is very well. Yes, please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I'm the ranking of the committee.
No, I haven't given you.
Chairman did not.
Are you raising your point of order against him?
Right, Honorable Speaker. Yes. Even though my honorable friend succeeded in taking away the time, what he has demonstrated with this information he is purportedly providing for this House is a clear dereliction of his responsibility as the chairman of the committee. The ranking member is here. We are all members of the committee. We have not been provided with information. And I think that it should be a justified ground for us to demand that this budget should not be approved. We ought to be provided with the information. And this clear admission that that information was provided and that information is only left in his bag, I doubt even whether our colleagues have access to this information. We will be justified in insisting that this budget should not be approved. I can bet my last penny that if that information was provided, my honorable friend, who is also known as Usain Bolt, my honorable friend, in fact, would have made that information available to us. Right, Honorable Speaker? Sit down.
Are you the friend? Are you the friend?
So, right, Honorable Speaker? No, it's not known like that.
Are you the friend? You are the club.
You need to learn the process. You can't just get up and start.
Can you withdraw the reference to Usain Bolt? It's not parliamentary, please.
He's my friend, Honorable Speaker.
When you are out of the house, you play.
Okay, I think that the AKA Usain Bolt will be addressed after my contribution. Right, Honorable Speaker, my honorable friend needs to learn the process very fast. You don't just get up to speak. You ought to be given the opportunity to speak. You are very slow in learning the process. You don't do that. Right, Honorable Speaker, if I can continue. So it is very clear that the chairman for this committee, who is supposed to be my chairman too, hasn't done well, and we insist that before we approve this, he should provide us with that evidence. And the reason why it was not only necessary but essential for us to make the demand was that the deputy ranking, whose constituency he was informed that there is one D1F, he wanted to know, and that information was never provided. So where is my honorable friend coming from? Right, Honorable Speaker? I think that what also came to the attention of the committee was the African Continental Free Trade Area. In as much as everybody is happy that we have the Secretariat in Ghana, having the Secretariat alone is not enough. What is important is harnessing the potential opportunities therein in the Secretariat. If you check in the budget, it seems to me, and most of us in the committee, that not much is provided in the realization of the dreams of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The fear that is expressed by many members of the committee was the fact that we may be at disadvantage if we do not take the necessary steps to harness that potential. And in any case, the budget of the ministry ought to be provided. And I was thinking that having had the Jamboree to celebrate the office in Ghana, I thought that in this budget we would have captured serious focus given to it so that we can take advantage of the opportunities in it. Right, Honorable Speaker, if you take, for example, the pharmaceutical companies, which is also captured in the report, the biggest pharmaceutical companies in Africa are not found in Ghana. The biggest pharmaceutical companies can be found in Nigeria, in South Africa, in Algeria, in Morocco. And if there is a proper appreciation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, we would be at disadvantage. What prevented those pharmaceutical companies from operating in Ghana was the fact that there were direct tax obligations, for which reason they may not be willing to operate in this African Continental Free Trade Area. Those taxes or tariffs on them are virtually taken off. They can now operate here with carte blanche. Now, what steps are we taking as a government to build the capacity of pharmaceutical companies so that they can compete to operate in this country and operate in the other? If you look at the budget, not much is given to that particular sector, and that is why genuinely some of us are worried. The importation of rice in this country. Right, Honorable Speaker, the minister himself admitted that the ban on the importation of rice into this country by states have been lifted. And that explains why last year alone, we spent $1.1 billion in the importation of rice into this country. $1.1 billion. And if you check what the Minister of Finance stated last year, that we spent $2.4 billion in the importation of food in this country. And out of the $2.4 billion, rice alone took $1.1 billion, almost 50% of the amount of money we spent in the importation of rice into this country. The source, let me provide it. Ministry of Finance, go and check. The Ministry of Finance website, they indicated last year. And in fact, the $1.1 billion spent in the importation of rice, Ketsi, the former Deputy Minister for Trade, Honorable Ahunka Lindsay, when he met land businessmen in this country, stated with alacrity that yes, we spend $1.1 billion in the importation of rice into this country. So if you need a source, I think the distance between here and the Ministry of Trade is not far. You can easily get that source there. So, right, Honorable Speaker, if you are spending almost half of the amount of money we spend in the importation of rice in this country, you can see a direct correlation. The ban yielded positive results. And this government must take the necessary steps to ensure that that decision to reverse. It is not only increasing the money we spend, it is also exerting pressure on our domestic currency in its relations with other foreign currencies. And that is why the dollar and the cedi relation is like that of Usain Bolt and my 2-year-old son. The dollar is running.
Hold on. Honorable members,
Can I conclude right on this?
In persons of Order 43, I direct that the House sits outside the regular sitting hours. You may conclude.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. So I'm saying that necessary steps be taken because it affects us, affects the economy, and affects everybody. Standardization. The Standard Authority, Right Honorable Speaker, and I agree with my honorable colleagues, ought to be given the needed resources. In fact, the Standard Authority is providing not only commercial advice, but even help, because they must check the kinds of goods that are imported into this country. But if their capacity is not built enough, we may all be in serious danger. Right Honorable Speaker, my earlier colleagues have indicated the capping of two companies, Standard Authority and the Free Zones Board. What for me was shocking was that in as much as we empathize with the Free Zones Board, I was scandalized that they spend over Ghana cedis for cleaning services a month. Over 50,000 Ghana cedis. Cleaning services. We all know that building. It means that every day they spend over 2,500 in providing that services. Now, if your concern is that government is not allowing you to use your internally generated funds, why would you spend that huge sums of money in providing cleaning services? So every year, over 600,000 Ghana cedis is being spent in services. Perhaps Parliament would have to take that responsibility, and some of us will be willing to be doing the cleaning and taking that money, because that is just unacceptable. And I think it ought to be looked at. The inter-trade within the sub-region. Right, Honorable Speaker, we think that the allocation of monies given to the Ghana Export Promotion Authority is nothing to write home about. If we really want to be competitive, we need to look at the resources made available to this very important agency under the Ministry of Trade. The realization of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, to a very large extent, lies on the way the capacity of those at the Ghana Export Promotion Authority. Right, Honorable Speaker, the Ghana International Trade Commission, and I think that we need to commend them for their maiden investigation. I was surprised that, having been the one who moved the motion in this House on the completion of the work of the Ghana International Trade Commission bill, and I knew that there were several concerns about dumping in this country. In as much as I praised them for doing a very good job, I was expecting that we would have done a lot of jobs now to protect our domestic industries. The garment and textile industry, and the chairman of the committee said that their capacities were built, they were supported to come out with PPEs. We all knew that that support was occasioned by the exigencies of the time. The question is, what support do we intend to give them going forward? Because inshallah, COVID will not be with us forever. If COVID goes, what support are we supposed to give to that industry? Because I heard their secretary, Abraham Kumsen, who said that we are asking their members to fast so that they can survive in terms of the assistance they get. The WTO rules demand that when pirated products are seized, they should be banned. The 4 years of this administration, I never observed a single pirated textiles brought into this country that was banned. Right, Honorable Speaker, the 4 years, 3 to 4 years I was a deputy minister, we did that to discourage people from bringing them into this market. If we do not take such steps, I think that they will be emboldened to bring inside pirated products, not just on the economy, for our health, because no one has any idea the chemical composition in the processing of such pirated products. They could use chemicals that are having certain effects in them that we may not know. And as long as we do not take the steps to ban them, I don't think that it will be good for our health. Right, Honorable Speaker, with these few observations. Right, Honorable Speaker, with these few observations, genuine observations, and love for country and the Ministry of Trade, I support that this House approve the budget line for the Ministry of Trade for the fiscal year 2021. Thank you.
Other conclusion of the debate. He said he was your leadership
Because
nominee.
please hear me first. Hear me first. I'm not coming to debate. I'm not coming to talk. There's a mistake in the report.
Sorry?
There's a mistake in the report which needs to be corrected.
Very well. Trauma.
Honorable Ricketts, correct the report.
Hello? Hello? Honorable Leader, I granted you leave. If you are going to ask somebody to do it, you should tell me. It's not up to you to appoint somebody after I've granted you leave. If you're applying for him, tell me, then I'll grant him the matter.
Mr. Speaker, honorable member, who is a member of the committee, identified some errors in the figures. He is not prepared to contribute, just to correct the figures. So I cannot give the slot for correction of only figures.
So you tell me that come this, then I'll grant him, but you
That is
appoint him.
that is what I'm doing.
No, you didn't tell me at all. You told me nothing.
I
You
said
just appointed
there's
him.
an error in the report need to be corrected.
By who?
That is why I mentioned him, that he should correct it. I didn't say I'm going to correct it.
Right, now I'll grant him leave to correct it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the motion on the floor in a way of making corrections to the report of the committee.
Honorable, I was going to mention our name, but I'll not mention that one. The leave granted you is to make a correction. Can you print the page where the correction is to me and do so? You are not granted leave to contribute to the debate, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are some errors in the report of the committee, and that is on page 4, table 1, budget allocation and total releases as at December 2020. Mr. Speaker, since this is a house of fact and record, I would like to point out that the IGF figure, that is column 1, is incorrect. It's 66,914,159 and not 75,693,357.86. That will mean that the total figure in the same column should be 466,575,738 and not 475,344,936.86. That means that when you come to column 3, the total variance figure there should be 79,819,754.43 and not 88,598,957.2.9. Consequentially, the variance in percentage terms should be 17% and not 19%. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Chairman, what's your response to these corrections?
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I'm sure that my colleague did not research annually during our meeting. I would have remembered. But the fact is, what we have here, Mr. Speaker, is what the committee sat to adopt at the meeting. And that notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, we called in later the Director of Budget for Ministry of Finance for us to go through these for at a substance or a position to be reached. Thereon, they stated that if there is any variances which has not been captured, they promise to handle that by the midterm review. So, Mr. Speaker, as it stands, the Ministry of Finance is aware and has been accepted and adopted by the committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. I'll put the question subject to the committee reconciling these figures with the Ministry of Finance for any correction to be effected. Thank you. Honourable members, at the conclusion of the debate, the question is all in favour of the motion, say aye. All against, say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. This House has approved the sum of 529,517,997 Ghana cedis for the services of the Ministry of Trade and Industry for the year ending 31st December 2021.
Mr. Speaker, the next item is Order Paper Addendum. Item 1, Presentation of Papers. Mr. Speaker, the paper is supposed to be presented by your good self. Since you are not available, I seek your leave to nominate Honorable John Kuma, a member of the Appointments Committee, to do so on your behalf. Thank you, Mr.
Very well. Order Paper Addendum at the commencement of public business, presentation of papers. Honorable John Kuma. Table office, yes, it's related.
Fourth report of the Fourth report of the Appointments Committee on the President's nomination of Mr. Ken Oforiatta as Minister Designate for Finance.
The report is duly presented. Is for distribution to members. Yes, Majority Leader. What next?
Mr. Speaker, I'm told they are in a printing room, printing for distribution the report on the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, and they thought that they'll be able to distribute them for consideration by the House. It does appear they are not ready yet, and if they are not ready, today being Saturday, I'm not sure that we can take a suspension and come back. And so, Speaker, with that situation, we may have to adjourn and come back on Monday. What it will mean is that, Speaker, it means that we'll have 9 motions outstanding for Monday. Speaker, I'll plead with the remaining committee chairs to speed up the presentation of their reports so we could take them early morning Monday, when the committee of finance will be dealing with the taxes that have been submitted to the House. Mr. Speaker, so I'll entreat you then to accordingly adjourn until Monday at 10 o'clock in the phone.
Yes, Honorable Deputy Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it's after 2 p.m., so we are in your hands.
Honourable members, the House is accordingly adjourned till Monday, 29th of March at 10 o'clock in the forenoon.